And then let me share this with you. And then get all my things. I've got to get a much bigger computer. I need a bigger thing.
Okay. Monitor or?
Yeah. Because I've got to sort all this stuff out. So like, okay, I can see your Starseed stuff here. I can see my spreadsheet here. You can see you and me there. Like,
oh yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, your birthday's not very long after mine. Well, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, let me fix this real quick here. Oh, is it up here at the top? Yeah.
Oh, the wind is blowing my van.
No, just like that. Okay. I hate that. I hate being in a vehicle and feeling the wind, like rocking it. Oh. Okay. So. Oh, right on. So 3 Capricorn placements and then 3 Sagittarius placements.
That makes sense with the van. That's the only thing I know about Sagittarius is their moving nature.
Well, what's funny about it is your Venus is in Sagittarius and your Uranus is in Sagittarius, which your Uranus is your daydreams and how you perceive those in the outside world. Oh, and wow. Then I love that your Pluto is in Scorpio right here, and being a water sign. Pluto is how you feel that you look to the other people, your outward appearance, basically. So being a water sign, I see how you have so many different styles. I love, because you said I do drag occasionally, but not a lot. But you had, I paid attention to your costumes there, like the different ones. So that makes a lot of sense, having it in a water sign and being able to, go back and forth and so on. And it's in your first house, which is you. It's you.
Interesting. I've never delved into my astrology, really, to be honest.
Really?
Other than like the basic Capricorn, I recently learned about my ascendant. But yeah.
So yeah, I didn't put your ascendant in here because a lot of people don't know their birth time, so I usually just don't even worry about it. What is your ascendant? Do you know?
It's Libra.
Oh my God, so is mine. So I'm a Capricorn sun, Libra rising, and a Libra moon. You're a Leo moon, meaning that you are super dramatic with yourself.
Oh, I moon, actually. That's wild.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. What?
So you're really grounded and you're really like specific in the way you are as a Capricorn. Libra makes you want balance. So you don't like when things are extreme one way or the other. You need to appear to other people that you're balanced out, even if your life is not. That moon is your emotions and your shadow side. So that means when you get upset, when you're emotional, it's really dramatic. And especially when you're emotional with yourself, with trauma or stuff you're dealing with. Yeah. You're either.
Is that correct?
You're either your own best cheerleader or you are the meanest motherfucker in the world to yourself when you're in your head.
Oh God. Wow. I don't know why I thought I was I don't know how to read astrology, so I probably made a mistake, but that's wild. Leo.
Yep. Sometimes people think that the Capricorn symbol is Virgo because it's a V. But the Virgo is actually an M. It's weird.
Oh, that's probably why.
So yeah.
Well, so, thank you. That's actually really helpful. My mom's a Leo as well, so that's interesting.
Oh, okay. So you understand her really deeply when she gets upset then.
I do, but she doesn't think I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I won't get into that.
Yeah. Well, your moon affects a lot of things in your chart. It affects your Saturn, which is your karma, your path. It affects your Uranus and it affects your Neptune. And your Neptune is also one of the ones that's in Capricorn, and those are your goals. Like, yeah, having a Neptune in Capricorn means that when you set your mind to something, like you would burn the world down to do it. So, and then your moon's also into or in line over here with your Mars, which is in Aries. That's a lot of interesting. Those are 3 powerful fire placements right there. Which
my mind is so blown right now.
your so your Mars is your passion, your divine masculine, the anger aspect and so on. So being in an Aries, yeah, that means that you don't like to fight from behind the scenes. Like you like to come at someone right then. Like if you're mad, you're fucking mad and they're gonna know it. They're not, it's not like back here hidden somewhere. Like the ones you really got to watch out for, like I will take somebody with a Mars fire sign all day long. It's the earth sign. It's the earth sign Mars. Those are the fuckers you got to watch out for, because like they will keep that way back here and they will absolutely poison the ground you walk on until all of a sudden you're like, what is going on? And they're back there like, like there's some sneaky bitches. Yeah. But
yeah.
This one right here is interesting though, because this is your personal power and it's in Pisces. Pisces is a pretty well-balanced water sign. Well, really the only well-balanced water sign. But okay. So what's interesting is being that you're a Capricorn and Pisces get along really well, which means that when you full on trust your own personal power, you really can do whatever you want. That works really well.
Particularly now, since I started the van and I'm doing this, it's not launched yet completely. I'm still formulating, but I'm making perfume. I've had such a change of reality just because I'm secure in the direction I'm going. So that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's look at the reason I'm supposed to be looking at things. Like, look at the thing.
The fun stuff.
Yeah. Move that up there. Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh, you're okay. Go ahead. I mumble to myself when I'm looking. I'm like,
I've done some starseed journeying for the past few years, but I've never ever looked into the astrology, only because I've just felt like whatever I am is probably pretty obscure. But I have a few leads, otherwise I won't mention right now. But I was just curious to see if the zodiac would say anything at all. So if nothing comes up, I'm not disappointed.
Oh no, it will. So I've spent the last almost 5 years at this point. So I have a cheat sheet. I have a spreadsheet that's on the other side of my screen over here. And it's just little, but I have built in like all the coordinates for each different nebula, planet, etc. I have paid attention because there's other people that have done research like this. So I paid attention to, okay, for people that have this many placements in Capricorn are usually fall into here. Like certain star seeds they'll come as water signs or earth signs, or they'll have a lot of water or fire, whatever. So I have all of that in this cheat sheet notes. And then I also have certain repeating numbers that show me the mark. Those are like the more like, this is the nail on the head. It's like when you go to the doctor, when you're like, well, I have these 4 symptoms, and they're like, okay, this could be any of these, but I can narrow it down from this 4 symptoms. And then I have all these numbers, and that like pinpoints it for me. So I'm curious because I've already got a couple. You're an interesting hybrid, that's for sure. I'll be curious to see if these are ones that you've already researched.
Yeah, I'll mention later.
My brain hurts today, so I'm like having to write things down, which makes me feel old. I haven't pulled my glasses out yet, so that's a good thing. But
writing things down is pretty nifty. I got this cheap little thing. It's like it's so old. Oh, you probably even, I don't think you can see it. It was like $90.
uh-huh,
And it's a little typer,
that's cool.
and it has a few files on it. And so whenever I have a dream, that as soon as I wake up, I rapid type it on this, even if it doesn't make sense. And it's
Yep,
been kind of cool.
that is really cool. Where was that one?
They have really expensive ones now, but the cheap one works fine. Yeah, I can't even begin to read that chart.
Oh yeah, so what I'm looking at now are all of these little teeny tiny repeating numbers in here.
Wild.
Because like even though this is a ton of numbers, and even though I hate math, I am fantastic at seeing patterns and stuff. It's almost like they stand out. They literally are like in bold, like they glow.
That whole point about Leo is sending me on a rabbit hole right now. Leo moon. Oh my gosh. It explains all of my hiccups. And it's actually kind of, I'm going to have to do a dive into that because that's cathartic.
That's funny. All right. Hmm. So you love to start things and sometimes you fall apart in the middle because you don't want to do all of the thing.
That does happen.
I understand that. So I love what I'm looking at here. I love that you're pretty balanced as far as your earth and your water goes, but your fire and air are completely out of balance. Like your fire is almost half your chart.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So I'll reshare here in a minute if I need to, but like what I was doing is, like I said, going through all those numbers and so on like that. So you're a really interesting hybrid, and there are 3 that I'm positive, and there's another one that I would bet there's a smidge in there, maybe a little more than a smidge, but I wouldn't say a 4th, if that makes sense. So it's almost like you know, third, but then this little extra is wedged in there for some reason. So so there's 2 that one, when I see more than 3 or more Capricorn placements, I know that you're an Orion starseed, because Orion starseeds almost always incarnate as Capricorns or Virgos, but they always have 3 or more Capricorn placements. Being that you only have 3 tells me that is just a part. It's just a part. Now, the more Capricorn placement somebody has, the more, it's almost like the more pure their soul is, complete Orion. That makes sense. Yours is like about, I would say a little less than a third. The next one is Andromedan. Andromedans love earth sign placement, but they also usually have a very strong fire placement because they're really grounded in their mission here. They're grounded in why they're here. You may not understand it, but your soul is super on like this. But the fire placements they tend to be very muted until they get excited, mad, worked up, whatever about something. That's why they love that fire placement. Andromedans are very strong manifestors. They're very strong with their personal power. They're very strong when they come out of their shell. They are like a powerhouse. The third big one is Pleiadian. They usually also have really strong Capricorn, Taurus, like earth sign placements, but your Pisces placement is what tipped me off to that one, because they usually have one of your main power signs, either your Jupiter like yours is, or their Saturn, their karma is in Pisces specifically, because they love that balance. They're either here to balance karma or they're here to balance personal power, and you are here to balance personal power. You're here to be able to find and own and really laser focus that personal power. So the other one, however, that I said is like wedged in there is really interesting. It's enough for me to mention it, and it's a draconian starseed. So those ones people sometimes go, oh, when I say that.
I've done a lot of shadow work with that, but that's interesting.
That is interesting. So a lot of times people I tell people this, just because someone says you're a draconian starseed, it actually means it's a good thing if they're telling you that, because the bad ones, it's one or the other. You are either here to fix things, because draconians are very intelligent, and usually they end up in some sort of neurodivergent body where they don't fit into the norm. They're almost always overwhelmingly smart in one specific area. Like, the people that they have a high IQ, but like one area, their IQ is like, that's not even a number. And the rest of it, they may be normal down here, whatever. They almost always have neurodivergent brains, but the bad ones are not going to make themselves known. Like, they use that for a reason. So yeah. So I find it interesting that you've done some shadow work with the draconian aspect.
Well, it's just kind of, just a minute. That's important because, I've listened to different types of oracle teachers about star seeds, and a lot of them are very fearful of draconians. And I'm here like, well, like I always kind of, how do I put this? When I was little, I used to say, I want to be a light in a dark place. Whatever that, even if I really want to understand the darkness. It's not me forcing my light onto the darkness. It's more like I want to understand the darkness so I can help it myself heal. And and I feel like a draconian or a partial draconian who is aware has already done the whole, whatever you call it, bioregenesis. I don't know if you believe in that, but I feel like the one that wants to do that is already aware of themselves.
Yes.
And I've had visions about draconians, and like the first word that comes to my head is inside job. But because I think I'm just making this up, I won't go on a tangent, but I do feel like,
no, go on the tangent. Look what I do for a living.
I do feel like certain people incarnated as reptilians to learn, because you kind of have to, after you have wars, you have to get into the psyche of other species or whatever out in the universe. I feel like that's just the law.
You're really, really intelligent. Like, you're one of the few people that understands that. I'm looking at something here.
I think if I was a draconian that wasn't doing any self-work, I don't think I'd be here.
Right. Yeah, you definitely wouldn't be here, because Earth is to learn the shit, learn the things, fix the emotional part.
I have two brothers that I am convinced I'm not the end all be all of their journey. They don't do any self-work. I'm just going to take the freedom to say that. I have a pretty good certainty that they're a lot of draconian or reptilian or something,
Mhm.
because they're one's pure sociopath, and then the other one is just like has a huge addiction problems, and he just replaces one addiction for the next one for the next one, and he's
Gotcha.
on a religion addiction right now. And he used to not be that way. He used to be very pragmatic. And from what I've searched about reptilians, a lot of them, are in the church. But that
Mhm.
I won't go into that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
No, they're in the church, and they're in places of power over a lot of people. This is why a lot of them go into politics as well. But church,
Mhm.
yeah, the any type of religion, like religious power, they love, because it's a love and a fear at the same time. And so the ones that are here for the not good reasons, they thrive on that fear power. They can give a shit if you love them. They thrive on that fear power and making people do what they want via being afraid. So that's why a lot of them are drawn to politics.
Well, I'm
So
glad you brought that up. I think that was important because it's bringing some codes.
mhm, good. You're definitely you're an interesting hybrid. Most people are 2, maybe 3, not really 4. Hang on, let me look at something.
What kind of Orion are we talking about? Because I know that there's quite a few different Orions. Do we know?
So the only one that I have stuff broken down with on here is the Mintakan, and you don't really have any placements in that. You have like a couple of the markers, but not enough for me to say that it's that. So you're here to work through a lot of things logically. I'm not saying that part of your soul isn't from Mintakan, but
Well,
I kind of bring it into like the general Orion, you know what I mean? And general Andromedan and things like that. Because usually from there, as you're researching the different ones and falling down the rabbit hole, you will find almost, it's funny because I talk to people like, you will find almost immediately the exact place you're from. Like you'll be drawn to it. It's so weird. It's so funny.
well, it's funny because all the ones you mentioned, they weren't told to me, and they popped up into my head at some point in my research, and I was like, Andromedan, that makes a lot of sense. Pleiadian, I felt like was there, but I felt like I wasn't like someone did read me as an not Apollonian, Merope,
Mm-hmm.
Pleiadian. I don't know, but we'll figure that out later. I'll figure that out later. But do you know anything about Apollonia? I think it's Beta Centauri.
A little bit, but not a lot. I don't know a lot about Beta Centauri. Is not one that I've researched a ton, but they fascinate me. I fell down the rabbit hole with like, because of course, when I start to do this spreadsheet, I'm like, where am I from? Let me look at my shit, like, where am I from? And so I've fallen down a lot of that. Like, oh God, why did I, oh my God, why am I doing like that kind of stuff? But
People
yeah.
have been talking a bit about Apollonia, and I was pegged for that. I don't know how she came to that. I think she channeled. I don't think she did astrology, but it hit me in an interesting way because Apollonia, which is supposedly, some people think it's a secret 8th sister to the Pleiades, but chipped off.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. And their planet was like, it's in another dimension, and that planet, their beings are very, everyone who comes from that planet has multiple, like often are fragmented on Earth, because they on their own planet they were every species. They had their own version of fairies and centaurs and unicorns, and they had their own kind of mermaid, but not like what we would think is the classical mermaid. But they had all these beings, and I'll wrap that up. But basically, they have on Earth, they have a very what do you call it? They're very much not satisfied with one identity. And I was like they get angry if someone like puts them in a box because they know that they can change, and that's like their nature. But that's interesting. But anyway, and I
So
think
one
Andromeda is like
interesting thing about Orions and Andromedans, Orions are kind of like the Vulcans of the starseeds, but they're kind of androgynous. Like they don't really. So like myself, I have a fuck ton of Orion placements. Like I have 5 Capricorn placements. And I've swung through different parts of my life where I've been very masculine, like tomboy was not even the right word. You know what I mean? I swing back and forth. I don't like being in the middle. It's like I feel like I have to be one or the other. And I'm like, okay, I understand why, because if my soul is very androgynous, I don't want to be in the middle anymore. Like I'm tired of being in the middle. I need to be one or the other, But Andromedans are kind of the same way. They're, buddy, I'll let you out in a minute. That's pitiful. They're kind of the same way in that they're very fluid with what they do, who they are, etc. They're happy to be either or all of the above. So yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. People that have a very reptilian soul, they tend to incarnate in a male form. And then they either, okay, let me start over. The bad ones almost always incarnate as male because they see that as the most powerful. If they do incarnate as a female, they are, those ladies that like you're scared of, not because they're really masculine, but they just exude that power. And like that is a mean motherfucker right there. They incarnate as those type of people. So the ones that are here for good, they will usually, so it's almost like this big conveyor belt, right? I mean, it's the only way I can describe it. So when your soul is going through, you have draconian placements. So it's almost like you have some of the other draconians like watching you. So it's like, okay, let me be in a boy body for right now. Just put me there. Just put me there. Just, let me go by.
I feel like my family is part of my self-work with that, because my mom definitely very played in, but I'm sure very has some reptilian in there. My dad, I feel, is Centauri something.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, I'm like definitely the black sheep in my family. And yeah, that just makes sense. I'm not mad about it at all. That's funny. I have a friend who he's also kind of like a maverick, and he suspects he might be something that might be considered dark. And we both kind of were talking about, there's the light language phenomenon, and I love light language. I do it. But we came up with something, because like when I do light language, it's just kind of coupled a little bit with shadow work. And my friend wants to call it, it doesn't need a label, but my friend wants to call it dusking. I'm not sure what about, but it's like basically, I think light language encompasses this anyway, just depends. But where you responsibly put a bit of planetary shadow work in your light work, and then but the goal is always to find resolution and to resolve in a holistic, bigger way, beyond our own ego, beyond what we want, but what is, beyond any dogma or whatever. So that's interesting. I'm gonna make one more point. This is my last ramble on that.
I'm like having so much fun listening to you. I'm like, yes, let's talk about all these things.
When I was little, I would always I would write little stories, and on my own. No one told me to do this. No one prompted me, but I would write these. I'd write one fairy tale, a short story, very sad, with like my goal was to cry. I had to make myself cry in one fairy tale, and no one told me about dimensions or anything. I would always couple it with another story that was like the same person in another dimension, where their sadnesses were resolved. There was still conflict in the new story or the secondary story, but there was some holistic resolution, and they both complete each other.
That's
And
awesome.
that's another form of kind of shadow work, storytelling or something. But I think that has something to do with my draconian placement and my mission.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you say that.
So one interesting thing about there, two of those were really interesting to me that they are together, because usually you don't see them together. That is the Orion and the Draconian part, because the Orions and the Draconians had a massive, massive war. Like the Draconians are actually the ones that blew Mintaka off the map. So it's very interesting to see those two together. It tells me, and then I want to tell you something else. It tells me that your soul is really trying to work through a lot of inner conflict. So I would not be surprised if you have a lot of times, and especially going forward, once you start really delving down this and learning about each one of these different stars, you know what I mean? And it sounds like you already have. So
I
in
don't know
doing a
much
lot
about
of that,
I don't know much about Andromeda, and I don't really know that much about Orion beyond. I do know a bit about the Mintakans, and I know a bit about the. Well, I don't think the Greys are from Orion. I just think that they reside there, but I
yeah,
don't know about
yeah,
that.
yeah. So they also were at war with the Draconians, and so it was kind of like the friend of my enemy is my friend, or the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Greys and the Orions together like that. But the fact that you have those two together tells me your soul is working through a lot of shit and trying to repair, come to terms, mend a lot of broken pieces that are there. So you're going to have a lot of times where when you're doing some shadow work, be careful, because you can really don't go too far. There we go. Let me say it that way, because you're going to have to chip away at a lot of this. So
I think that goes along with what you revealed about my Leo placement, the moon placement.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree with you on that. That's really very special advice.
So the other thing I noticed on here when I was looking at all those numbers, there's this big long row in one of them. You have a lot of 7s, 8s, and 9s. And while some of that I was looking at over here, but what that tells me is that you're rounding the end of however many incarnations you have to have here. You're not at the end, but you're rounding the end. I would say you're probably only a couple lives away from being done, depending on how much you get done here.
Well,
so
I had one reader a long time ago, and I've had different readers spontaneously tell me this. No, they didn't know me or anything. They just said, I don't think they didn't use the word rest life, but basically they said, your goal in this lifetime is to, not in a hedonistic way, but to learn how to enjoy yourself.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Andromedans, Draconians, and Orions usually are here to learn how to relax, to learn how to let go and not be so like logical.
Andromeda, that's they're where are we on time? Are we? I don't want to take over your time.
About 5-ish more minutes or so.
Oh, we
I
did
would
good.
totally sit and talk to you about this all afternoon. I'm like, kind of wish I didn't have an appointment after this.
We did so good though. Andromeda, I don't know much. I'll have to do some research on them.
Ooh. I don't know where that went.
The only sources I've heard externally would be that they're also very, and you've already kind of said this, but they're very mercurial. They move a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only tip I have into Andromeda.
Yeah.
I'll look into that. Well, this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Honestly, I can't believe that I've had my moon sign wrong this whole time.
Really?
Well, I don't know how to read charts, so I just always thought I was a Virgo. But
okay.
this as actually, it makes more sense to be a Leo moon for me.
Yeah.
Well, yep. I'm sure we'll have another session sometime soon, because this was too much fun.
I would love that.
Okay.
I would love that.
So
All right, love. Well, have fun. Be safe. Watch out for the squirrels.
There's no trees under me right or over me right now, but I will watch out. All right. Thank you so much. Love, love, love.
Welcome. And I've got this recorded for you so you can go back and listen to it later. Sass will send you a link and it'll be a private YouTube, like you're the only one that'll have it. So don't worry about anybody seeing it. You're the only one that'll have it.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you later.